All right, hi everybody. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show. My name is Stephen D. Kelley. It is July 2nd, 2020. Believe it or not, it is a significant date. This is the Stephen D. Kelley Show, and this is TruthCat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. It's actually 6:58 where I'm sitting. So, our fluctuation in the showtime schedules, of course, is due to the fact that Governor Newsom once again has closed down eating inside of restaurants. You know, first they closed down bars, and they closed down the restaurants once again. So I won't be going out, even on the curfew schedule. What else could go wrong, right? All right, so today in history, Thursday it is, this morning, Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested in New Hampshire, I believe it was, by the FBI. Now, this, of course, is interesting for lots of reasons, so we're going to naturally talk about her role in the Epstein affair, what's being talked about and what's not being talked about. But we also want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Trump and how this event is ultimately going to be involved in that ongoing drama. And, of course, I want to share some other things with you, and hopefully we'll put together a halfway decent show for you, especially since we know that most of the listeners are only here for the first 14 minutes. Well, I'm not going to lament that anymore too much. I already figured it out that it'll be maybe quite a few years in the future before the people pay attention to what I have to say. But that being said, okay, so the FBI arrested Ghislaine Maxwell. Now that's interesting because it was almost a year to the day, just shy of maybe 4 days, since the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein last year. How quickly we forget. I looked at the calendar and things that were going on the day that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested a year ago, 4 days from now, were kind of significant. Black Lives Matter issues were in the news. Kamala Harris introduced a bill to provide $100 billion for black housing. That's kind of interesting. Now that issue seems to dovetail with the current date. I looked for other connections, interesting connections, but I thought maybe they just didn't get the date right. You know, if they were trying to do some sort of ritual, maybe they were using the wrong calendar. But either way, it's been almost exactly a year within shy of 4 days since Jeffrey Epstein was arrested and the FBI decided to arrest Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, of course, they charged her with all the little pedophilia charges, mainly soliciting these minors, getting the minors to travel, coercing them into providing sex acts, etc., prostitution, you name it, all this sort of thing. But it all focused on the sexual stuff. Now, of course, it's theater. And unfortunately, it's theater involving sex. And this is the best theater, apparently. I noticed that the by-story to the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell was a deposition or one of the women that claims that she was raped by Trump and Jeffrey Epstein was also in the news at the same time. And it's sort of interesting that the way that worked out. Now, I have a few theories of my own about this particular arrest and the broad picture about what it is, but I'll just say first, before I get into all that, that nowhere in any of the records will you see any mention of the word Mossad. Now, there's a movie out on Netflix right now, and it's all about Jeffrey Epstein. I think it's called The Filthy Life of Jeffrey Epstein or something like that. Terry Joyce is sending me images. Anyway, I didn't watch it, of course, but I did look at the review. And basically what they said was the movie was filled with accounts of what was done to the victims by the victims. Sordid little details of how they were raped or molested or exposed to this or that and this sort of thing. Now, of course, the lecherous public that consumes this content are going to be all excited by this taboo. It gives them the opportunity to delve into the minds and the fetish and the habits of these perverts and maintain some sort of moral high ground. But it's still entertainment. But once again, nowhere will anyone mention anything about the Mossad. All of these forms of entertainment, forget about that. You know, this is a tangent, of course. You know, you guys hate it when I do this, but I don't even know if I mentioned this, but I watched this movie called The Death of Stalin, and it was a pretty good movie. I didn't want to watch it but I'm so bored to death that I ended up having to watch it for lack of anything else to do. But I expected it to be some sort of really bad propaganda, but it was entertaining. It had all the characters, the Khrushchev, you know, Stalin, of course, Lavrenti Beria, who of course was ran the secret police and was responsible for a lot of genocide. Now, throughout that movie, though, death hung over everybody's lives. They were in fear of death, of course, of Stalin and his henchmen. Of course, this would be Beria. But the thing is that they acted like once Stalin was gone and once they could get rid of Beria, the problem would go away and they would be able to stop being genocidal and what have you. And then when Stalin died, of course, they performed an autopsy on him and his son. Stalin's son thought that apparently he was supposed to be being portrayed as a crazy person, but he suggested that the brains were going to be collected and sent to, quote-unquote, Zionist forces in America. Now, this, of course, is really funny. And in the movie, this was dismissed as a crazy conspiracy theory. But it's also a massive redirection. Because the Bolsheviks, the so-called communists, are the Zionists. It's almost the same exact club. It was basically two coffee houses that started this stuff in Lithuania down the street from each other, but they're basically the same thing. And those guys went on to slaughter mostly Christians, mostly Caucasian, Russian, Slavic types, as opposed to the Khazars. Either way, this was completely omitted from the film, and yet this concept or this quack idea of a Zionist conspiracy was redirected in the opposite direction, namely the United States. So the only reason this bothers me enough to even say anything about it is because this is the nature of every bit of media that we're exposed to, is constantly rewriting history and changing the truth and managing the truth. And even though you can't hide something like the fact that they killed 30, 40, whatever million people in a short period of time, i.e. the Bolsheviks, i.e. the Zionists, these guys that run the media, in fact, that's the thing, you pointed to USA Conspiracy, those were, my God, it's the same damn people, but the point is that the Jeffrey Epstein story, of course, is the same thing. Now, we can all speculate. I don't want to waste too much time on this silly woman because I think, if anything, when it's all said and done, I think that she probably won't get the same consideration and respect that Jeffrey Epstein will get, because obviously he is a large hero to Mossad and to the Zionist movement and the dark side. I don't know that these people harbor the same level of respect for their female agents. I kind of don't think so. So if you ask me, will they throw her under the bus? I'm inclined to think that they will. For instance, I don't believe that Jeffrey Epstein was killed himself. He wasn't murdered, whatever. I believe he's alive. I believe he's somewhere in Israel. I believe that he controls so many billions and billions of dollars that there's no way on earth that they could possibly harm him, which is another thing that they don't mention, next to the fact that he is running a very successful Mossad operation. So what could this all mean? Now, a lot of people, of course, in the Q community and the right-wing Trump supporters and what have you, that try to find some sort of a victory in every one of these little events, they'll make jokes and say that Ghislaine Maxwell didn't murder herself, or let's just say she didn't kill herself. She hasn't killed herself yet. Some sort of dark humor. Of course, I muff the joke, but the point is that she hasn't suicided herself yet. She's in jail and she hasn't picked the date. I suppose if we look at the date that Jeffrey Epstein said he suicided himself, supposedly, that'll be the day we should be watching for her to do it, because these guys are so into this stuff. Now, I just want to mention really quick here, and I know this is probably going to throw me out completely, the path I'm trying to take here, but we do have an eclipse coming up. Supposedly will happen on our 4th of July, which of course is a big day here in the United States, in spite of our police state conditions that we're heavily into. Perhaps the patriotic spirit that supposedly is what the 4th of July is all about might suddenly erupt in a non-BLM type fashion. Who knows? But back to Jeffrey Epstein a little bit here. I think that the best case scenario for the powers that be, and this applies to almost every situation, is that whenever you have a so-called trial and you have some sort of investigation, the focus of this trial and the focus of the investigation will be extremely narrow and will be designed to stifle the truth and put an end to any further truth finding. Now, in the legal climate that we have here in the USA, we're in a COVID scare, which means that anybody that has served half of their sentence that follows other certain guidelines, nonviolent, whatever, I don't know if that would apply to her, but they get out of jail pretty much. They go home because they're, obviously this is a serious sentence. This isn't like Paul Manafort that got 7.5 years. Certainly there's no way that somebody's going to give a child trafficker or a madam for a pimp 7.5 years. I would expect that I saw something that said, look, she was looking at 45 years, which of course could be reduced to 20 years or something of this nature. Here in Los Angeles County, typically people will serve 30% of their sentence. So I'm sure something like that would probably be in order. She's 58 right now, so that could be considered a life sentence, but still, it's relatively light, considering that deals are made, people are released, et cetera, et cetera. It's very common, especially when you're talking about wealthy people that are connected, especially people who are connected to the Mossad. And naturally, any sort of so-called jail, death, or suicide, we could expect means that they've basically been extracted and taken somewhere else. But will they do that for her? Probably not, because she doesn't control the billions of dollars like Jeffrey Epstein did. So the money certainly has a lot of sway here. We'll see. Now, a little while back, of course, I'm going to bring this up because it's becoming more relevant. I started doing that investigation into all the mafia connections of Trump, and the fact that most of these guys, these mafioso, these criminals, including the bankers, not just the Russian mobsters and those swarthy guys, they do scams which are typically pump and dumps, where they will sell something at an inflated value, cash in and take off, disappear, crash the product. Very often, companies will be set up, values will be inflated, investors will be enticed, and then the company will crash, and the investors will lose all their investment. But all of the equity will have been siphoned off by the con men that are running the operation. Now, this is classic. Donald Trump himself has done this many times. We call these things bankruptcies. You would think that he's had a bankruptcy because he was a bad businessman. No, that was a pump and dump. That was a confidence scam. And the best way to do these things is to take the money from the investor who are expecting a return, kill the operation, and take the investment and never provide a return. Obviously, a Ponzi scam works the same way, and this is basically all the same thing. But the point is Donald Trump epitomizes this, so much so that Trump Tower is filled with people that have been convicted of this exact crime. Now, why would he surround himself with people that are known con men that have been prosecuted for Ponzi scams, confidence scams, bank fraud? Well, hell, he has a cocaine smuggler in there too, but most of these guys, that's where they made their money, is through this sort of thing. Well, what he's done to the United States is basically the same thing. When you come in here, you spend a lot of money, spend. And of course, when you're spending money, you're taking equity and you're converting it into a paycheck for someone else, a friend of yours. And you're bleeding. And at the same time, you're saying, yes, but I'm building. Look at this money that we're spending because we're building all this stuff. That's the pump. The dump is when we have a COVID bullshit scare going on, and suddenly nobody's working. Suddenly even more money is bled out of the country in the form of incentives or whatever they call it. Reparations, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Either way, it's further bloodletting. So what do? They cash in on it. They short sell. Everybody's out of work. Businesses crash. What happens when the businesses crash? People foreclose on their homes. The banks foreclose. People default on their mortgages. That's happening all over the country, of course. A silly-ass check from the government or extended unemployment checks are only going to last so long. Anyway. So that little spoonful of sugar that they're giving everybody to make you forget that they're completely destroying our economy. Now, of course, I feel pretty helpless. Well, I don't want to say helpless, but I feel like I've certainly failed in my mission. Well, I'm not going to say fail, but let's just say it's gotten incredibly difficult and hard to see any progress whatsoever at this point. But one thing that did occur to me is that with this quarantine, whatever you want to call it, this shutdown, the Getty has been closed. It has to have been. Certainly the Getty has not been open to any public since the beginning of this operation. So up until this COVID issue, the only time that has ever happened is during the fire that surrounded the structure for a little while. Now, when the fire was happening, a lot of photos were taken. A lot of people talked about the Getty just because the Getty was right in the middle of it, and they're all focused on it. Everybody thought that there was some sort of tie-in, that somehow this must have something to do with what was going on a mile underground. Now, of course, people remember, plants burning on the surface are not going to affect anything a mile underground. The elevator obviously is not going to carry fire a mile underground, and there's no way whatsoever that that could possibly happen. But here we have a situation now where the place has been closed to the public peacefully. They didn't just shut the gates and say, no, you can't protest here, but they've said, for your own safety, we're going to close our doors, so if you come here, nobody will get sick. So right away, they've somehow insulated themselves from the possibility of a demonstration or a protest or an occupation or any kind of public display designed to cast a spotlight on that location. So I'm sure that's just an accident. I'm sure they didn't consider that whatsoever, but here it's going on. So we've been pretty stifled. We're only 20 minutes in. Anyway, I know a lot of people are working a little extra hard right now trying to spread the word, find creative ways of using things that I've said and some images to wake some people up. And that's all good. And certainly, if you have any skills in that area whatsoever, I think that's something that's very important that you should continue to try to do. One thing I will say, though, is that a lot of what we have out there that's being used as far as words they're coming from every time I'm up on stage, which has only been a few times over the last, whatever it is, 10 years, I think it is, 2012 since I really started doing this, yeah. So that's unfortunate because obviously I've been shut off from that. And certainly I'm not the most linear speaker, and I have a tendency to go, on people. That pisses people off, especially when there's a microphone, whatever. Or my shirt's not tucked in and they don't like it, whatever. I'm very passionate about what I'm speaking about. But if I'm going to have to be the only weapon that we have, and all the words out there are words that are going to come from me, I'm your ammunition, your source of ammunition, then we need to have some more. We need to have more of that. So I'm going to make the suggestion to those of you out there that are listening that or here now or in the future, whatever, assuming I'm still alive, is that there's a great deal of importance right now with getting me up somewhere out in public on a stage in front of people as soon as possible, as much as possible. Anything from a church to a gathering of a police officer's luncheon. I don't care if you have a pinochle club that meets every other Thursday or every other Friday, whatever. Let's let's hook up. I mean, if you got a group of weirdos that likes to talk about, no, I'm kidding, aliens or something, have me over as a speaker. But the thing is, if there's anybody out there that has the opportunity or ability to, hopefully not too far away from where I'm at, obviously, because I got to get there, to get me up somewhere in front of a bunch of people, this would be very good for the cause, because that way, if you haven't figured it out, first of all, anytime I get up on stage in front of a bunch of people like that, it's not I don't write a speech, okay? Everything's ad lib. Ad lib means that you make it up as you go. Spontaneous. And because of that, you're going to get something unique every time that happens. So the key here in our battle is to continue to try to find new types of ammunition, new words, new strings of words, new sentences, new paragraphs, new memes, new images, slogans. We need to nurture that as much as possible, and we need to build up our supply of ammo that we can use in this fight. And I'm just saying, if I'm going to be the one doing all the talking, I need to have more opportunities to talk so that we have more sound bites to string together in useful ways to convince people to join the cause. Okay, so that's very important. Let me look at who's listening. Oh, we got everybody here now. Czech Republic. Hello, Czech Republic. Greetings. Wait a minute. What's the thing to say in ahoy, Czech Republic? Ahoy. There you go. For those that didn't know, hello in Czech is actually ahoy. Hi. Cypress, Texas. Hi. Los Angeles, Buffalo, Ohio, Massachusetts, Winnipeg. Chicago. Hey, Chicago. How you doing? Decatur, Georgia. Hey. Oklahoma. Interesting. Oklahoma. Hi. Hacienda Heights, of course, is still here with us. Greetings, dude. Okay, so. All right, so for instance, you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, for instance, you out there, you know who I'm talking. I'm sure you're listening right now. You got a church group. Get me up in front of your church group, okay? Talk to your pastor. All right? You got a men's club. You got a bunch of guys that hang out. I'll speak to a group of Nazis if they invite me, okay? I'll speak to whoever. I'll, of course, won't worry about my life. I'm sure they'll be more afraid of me than I am of them. But seriously, get me out there and let me do that, because, first of all, where I'm at right now, using the internet, using these recordings, I'm only able to reach so many people, and they can only get the power of the words. But in public, it's different, obviously. There's a little more exchange of energy. And this is what makes these public experiences or these public appearances so important, is because there is the interchange with the audience. Obviously, there's a relatively, I can see you guys are out there and all that, but it's not quite the same. You understand? I can certainly take energy from you as I'm speaking, but on the stage, it's quite a different thing. So if you can help me out with that, I think it might help us to further the cause as quick as possible. Oh, what else do I want to tell you? We're only 30 minutes into the show. I'm probably not going to do a big, long show tonight, only because there's only so much to tell you about this stuff. But if I wanted to go back to talk about the thing that's going to happen with Ghislaine Maxwell, just to reiterate, if all they do is focus on pedophilia, even if she's thrown to the lion or thrown under the bus, which I don't think will happen, and even if it does, she'll still be extracted eventually, Jonathan Pollard style. Sooner or later, Israel will request the humanitarian release of her to Israel, per se. Probably the same thing that they did with Jonathan Pollard. But the bottom line is that the evidence will be sealed. Now, I didn't really get into this, but the evidence that has been acquired for prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein in his trial is actually being collected and destroyed. And one of the plaintiffs, one of the women that was accusing Jeffrey Epstein of rape, her attorney was actually instructed to destroy all files pertaining to that case. Now, clearly, you would think that would be illegal. And certainly, you'd wonder why they would be asking for that. Now, there's another interesting connection. You know, we're all about connecting the dots, and this is actually an interesting one. But it was only last Saturday, actually, I believe it was. We actually talked about this on the show, I think, that the lead prosecutor for the Southern District of New York was dismissed by Trump through his agent Barr. And of course, this created all sorts of drama. Needless to say, his current position is being filled by this woman. Let me see what's her name. I actually have that information here relatively close. This date in history? No, I don't have it in front of me. Yeah. Oh, here it is. Oh, this is the Filthy Rich. That's the story that's out on the Netflix right now about Jeffrey Epstein, of course. And of course, Maxwell. In fact, it's probably that silly story that's the reason why these guys are after her so much right now. Huh. But once again, they're only going to talk about these lurid details. It's like, yeah, the girl was topless. The girl gave massages. This and that. He did this, she did that. This is really all you guys care about. Huh. There really isn't much to say about this Jeffrey Epstein. Here it is. I'll tell you, it's unfortunate because this is actually clouding people's minds. And when if I wanted to actually do any investigation right now or go online and look up anything that happened to Epstein or anything, in other words, the very fact that this happened today is causing us to forget that it was a year ago that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested. I don't know. I'm really over it, guys. All right, we're only half hour into the show. We still have a lot of people here. Let's see. All right, well, I'm going to tell you guys this, okay? I'm going to depart from Epstein since you know how it is. But this thing happened here yesterday, actually. And I was in the house and I heard a big crash. And I looked out the window and I thought it must have been a big wind or something. But no. Nothing was moving around. It must not have been a big wind. So I didn't pay any attention. Anyway, I went out there later on to go water the grass. And lo and behold, the big giant tree in the backyard was missing its top. It had came crashing down. Landed on my, whatever you want to call it, patio cover. Fortunately, the patio cover did not. It didn't crush the patio cover. But anyway, needless to say, the tree is about 60 years old. And this is really bad, of course, because I'm kind of bonded to this tree, and it's I've had a lot of trauma here recently with a big tree across the street getting cut down. Now, just to get into it a little bit further, philosophically speaking, the tree apparently is dying. Like I said, it's a 60-year-old tree. It may have been neglected. Probably was neglected. It wasn't pruned properly. It may not have been watered properly. It may not have been cared for, or whatever, but it grew in such a way that it was prone to breaking. Okay? Anyway, so this tree had big roots that went pretty far, and one of them went into the yard of the house next door, just to the south. And just on the other side of the fence, on the other property, another tree grew. Same type of tree. Grew pretty tall. It wasn't as tall as the one in this backyard, but you could still see it. You could see it from the satellite, certainly. And it provided a lot of shade. The birds loved it. And it looked like just one big extension of the other tree. Well, you know how I feel about what happened to the big pine tree across the street, how devastating that was and how permanent it was. Well, some Chinese people bought the house next door, and they proceeded to use the backyard to plant various vegetables or some sort of produce. Very much like you might see, say, somewhere in central China with somebody squatting in a big dirt field planting some sort of green stuff. This is kind of what they did over there, and they have bamboo woven as some sort of a support for whatever it is that they're growing. But anyway, these people decided to cut down that tree, and while they were at it, for good measure, they cut down a palm tree that was just off to the side too. Now this palm tree was about 1 meter in diameter at least. It was one of the original trees that had probably been planted way back when this, whatever you want to call it, development was first put together back in post-war era, when they were building these houses rapidly. So I suspect that this tree here in the backyard and the big palm tree in the yard next door and the big giant pine tree across the street were all probably planted around the same time, and they've been in close proximity for about 60 years, roughly, which is kind of coincidental. Well, anyway, if you've ever watched the movie, what is it, Avatar, they tell you that these things are all connected. And yes, they are. They are connected underground through the roots and the moss and the phylum, whatever you want to call it, the little strands of DNA that extend through the ground when it's undisturbed. And these things are all connected. Now, when these Chinese people cut down the tree, the palm tree, they just cut it down and left it flat. They didn't mess with it. But the other tree, the one that was connected to the tree in our yard, they didn't just chop off the tree at the stump, which was pretty massive, mind you. But they dug it up. They went down deep, several feet, meter deep, whatever. And they hacked away at the roots until they had removed it, all of it, the entire root ball. Now bear in mind that this root ball wasn't just for that one tree. It had a main root going to the other big tree on the other side. The original root that brought it to where it was on the other side of the tree. So basically, the smaller tree that was cut down was an extension of the other tree, so much so that they shared roots. Well, so this particular tree, it's green all the time. It has lots of little flowers. The bees are in there. There's lots of activity. Lots of squirrels, uh, birds, of course, bees, just ants, you name it, lots of activity. The ants aren't so hot, but anyway, 60 years it's been sitting there, and I made a pact with this tree. We weren't going to cut it down. I was going to try to preserve it as much as possible. We would just trim the dead wood and remove stuff that looked like it might be dangerous, that might fall down, but for the most part, we would not trim it. Well, I couldn't see what was going on the other side of the wall when they were hacking away at that root, but just imagine you're a living creature and you've got some little scrawny little entity digging underground and hacking away at your roots, taking it by the chunk. And this is what is sustaining you. They've already cut down the one tree, which was a physical manifestation of the other tree, another entity unto itself. But it wasn't just that, it was an entity that was connected to this other entity very intimately. Not so much the palm tree, 3 or 4 meters away, but they were still buddies. They grew up together. They've been there forever. Anyway, so when this first happened, these branches, one of the things I felt, well, they're just falling, especially like yesterday. I mean, it had cracked, there was a crack, but it just fell. Like I said, there was no wind. It's disintegrating. You think, what happened? What happened? Why? You communicate with the tree, what's going on? And I realized, physically destroying that root in the other yard cut into the nutrient feed, the main taproot, something of this nature, for that tree. It was a trauma. Not just cutting down the tree was a trauma, but digging it up, hacking it away by chunks, peeling it away until it's gone. That was a trauma. Just like death by 1,000 cuts, you're pounding away at this poor thing. So in the end, it was deprived of its nutrient source. Its friend right there had been chopped down, and its mate, if you will, was removed. Its progeny, whatever you want to call it. If anything, this is how trees reproduce. They send out roots and they grow into new trees and they spread. So this was a mother tree. But either way, why is it dying? It's dying because it's not getting any nutrients? Maybe the tree is heartbroken. It's very possible. This probably was devastated when the big tree across the street was destroyed. It was devastated when not just its tree that was connected to, but the palm tree right next to it was destroyed. Bear in mind, the palm tree had been there much longer than the other tree. The other tree was like a child. So this tree lost all its friends and lost its child, lost its family. And it didn't just lose its family. They dug out the roots, chipped away at it, removed the roots. So it's not hard to understand why this tree would just start disintegrating and falling apart dead. A tree that's been sitting there going through all this life now for the last 60 years, all of a sudden it's falling apart. Unfortunately, this damage that has been sustained is such that when the tree is finally trimmed, it's going to not have much left. Most people would just remove the whole thing, leave a stump. Me personally, I didn't even want the tree to be trimmed because I didn't want to traumatize the birds and the squirrels. And yet, even when a big, huge piece of that tree fell down, The birds and the squirrels survived. Fortunately, there were no animals in the backyard. I wasn't in the backyard. I didn't get crushed. My patio covers seemed to sustain the blow. I will say this, though, that when I was chopping it down, trying to reduce the debris, there were two things I was worried about. There was a very tight wire from the clothesline that had a piece of tree laying on it. If that thing snapped, it would have been a bad situation. And then, of course, there was a big, giant piece of tree sort of half hanging from the tree and half on the roof. That had to be brought down. Needless to say, it fell on top of me when I finally got it down. But for some strange reason, my body stopped it from falling. I thought, oh, maybe if I'm lucky, it'll kill me. But no, didn't even get injured. I mean, I have bruises and stuff, but it didn't happen. Anyway, there's a huge amount of dead tree laying in the backyard that has to be dealt with, and I don't really have the motivation to do it. But the bottom line is, before I go too much further, is I realized that this tree is a metaphor for me here, guys. It's been here all this time. It's lost its friends. It's lost its family. It's losing its roots. It's lost its roots. Its roots are dying. It's dying from the inside. When that happens, there's really not a whole lot you can do. So, what do we have for options? Well, you can't save this tree here, okay? We can trim it, we can do all kinds of things, but it's probably never going to grow back, and it's probably never going to heal, and it's probably going to get worse, and it's very unfortunate. It's never going to be gracing the neighborhood and providing all those branches for those birds and all those little flowers for the bees. Certainly, it's not going to provide any space for squirrels to hide out so that they can feed off of the bird feeder. Trust me, they're awful cute. So what do we do? Well, we can plant more trees. Well, how long is that going to take? How long is it? I personally don't have 60 years for any tree to grow up. So what do? We plant a whole bunch of little trees that have a relatively finite amount of branches and just a few leaves. It's a start. Well, let's see. Once again, metaphorically speaking, I guess you guys are all those little trees, okay? We're trying to replace the impact of the big tree, okay? So what are we doing to try to continue to feed those squirrels and those bees and those birds? We need more branches and more leaves. We got to plant more trees. So that's you guys once again. And yeah, you can't do it. You don't have the branches. You're tiny. You haven't been doing it for very long. You've only got so many leaves. It doesn't matter. At this point, we don't have time to wait for one tree to grow up to be this big giant source of sustenance for all these critters. We need to have a whole bunch of little trees that are going to basically speed up that process and try to achieve the same effect as quick as possible. Now, if all those little trees turned out to be big giant trees like the original, that's extra cool, if we should be so lucky. Oh, look at this little story. It said that Bill Barr went to go visit Josiane Maxwell in jail. Isn't that interesting? He probably went there to assure her, now don't worry, you're only going to have to serve a short period of time. We're only going to charge you for these things. It's all good. We got this in the bag. I'm managing this whole thing. Obviously, that's what's going on. All right, so bottom line, people, we can't save the tree, I don't think. We're not going to fix the tree. The tree's not going to blossom and act like a young tree, okay? I can't grow any more trees. I'd like to. Would have been nice to have a few more sprouts, but it's not looking out like that's going to happen. So it's up to you guys, and of course, it does take a lot of work, okay? It's going to take enough work for me just to clear away the debris here, let alone plant new trees. So how's that for a metaphor for you? You like that? Anyway, let's see. We're about 48 minutes into the show. I know we started early. That's why it probably seems like a little bit longer for me, even though I goofed off at the beginning of the show. I'm going to go ahead and take a couple of calls tonight, just in case you want to. It's not like I got anywhere to go tonight, but I'm going to try to make the most of it. Oh, I do want to say, first of all, I don't know if you're out there, but shout out to Oceanside. I never see you showing up on the display here. Let's see if you're on the display at the moment. Hacienda Heights, there you are, all over the place. No, I don't see it. Don't see any Oceanside there. Huh. Bizarre. Anyway, I'm glad to hear your truth is better. I'm going to be out of Facebook jail in about 3 days, supposedly. We'll see how long that lasts.
I wanted to ask you something.
What?
Well, you know that Prince Harry, he's still UK, is now living very near to the Getty.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that. I thought he was in Canada.
Yeah, but he didn't go to Canada. He's at Tyler Perry in Beverly Hills compound.
Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's interesting, and I'll tell you why. First of all, something may go down this weekend, and I want to get Bob in here because he made some observations. Let me see if I can find him about some stuff that was going on in his neighborhood. There he is. I don't know if he's alive. Oh, one's green. I'll go call the one that's green. Let me see if he shows up. Anyway, the thing is that he saw some people doing some things that were very odd that might suggest a preparation. All right, hey, Bob. All right, I understand that you had made a couple comments to somebody about, being annoyed at somebody shoving a bunch of $100 bills into a ATM. Mm-hmm. And I had some thoughts about that, but there was something else that you were tripping on. But bottom line is, it looks like they're prepping for something big to go down. Now, before you say anything, I'm thinking, who puts money into an ATM, right? Who puts cash into the bank? Now, the only reason would be, and I'm thinking because my intuition tells me that the person that was doing this was sort of lowly, and you wouldn't expect to have this money, perhaps two people. They're distributing funds. Two older ladies. Now, do you think it was their money, or do you think that they were putting the money somewhere where it could be distributed?
I think they cashed the check and they got the money, and they didn't know how to really work the ATM. When you deposit bills or anything, I think you do it all at one time. You don't just put one at a time. They were having trouble. And
here I'm looking for more sinister observations. I'm thinking here that they're like trying to pay off Antifa or something of this.
I think Antifa paid them off.
Antifa paid them off. Okay, that makes sense too. But why would they have so much money then?
Well, they get paid a lot. I don't know. They were carrying a whole wad load of $100 bills, and I haven't seen that much since I was trafficking.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
all that other stuff. But I mean, there was a lot. I wanted to.
Well, that sounds
like
a
couple of those.
I'll be like, hey, wow, yeah, generosity, huh? But anyway, it just seems to me though that they are prepping for something here this weekend. I know this eclipse we're supposed to have on the 4th is supposed to be kind of nasty, and I think if anything, I don't know. You think? Is there still activity going down there with people, as far as people?
Well, yeah, I see a lot of scouts out. They go in 2 and 3 in bike loads. They're all wearing black. I think there's a lot of new homeless people that could be informants. Uh-huh. I don't know. I have no idea. All I know is there was another incident where a lady went to work. Somebody double parked in her spot. There were no other spots in the lot. She went on the side street. She had some time. She was looking at her computer. Lo and behold, two gentleman. They stole her laptop and the other one stole the purse. She went to chase them with her car, and she hit a island, and it screwed up her car.
Well, that's not too good.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's triggered, and I found myself being triggered, and I said to myself, "This isn't me." I go, "This must be my reptilian
So basically,
DNA.
you're telling me it's some sort of a racial thing. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. You didn't want to say it, huh?
Well, I don't want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quote unquote gentlemen. Two quote unquote gentlemen accosted a quote unquote white lady. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay.
It's a horrible thing.
It is, but it's going on. See, that's the thing, and it's so easy. See, this is the thing. I mean, all right. First of all, culture aside, racial issues aside, we do have a criminal underclass. It's just the way it is. We have a criminal underclass, especially the one that's been nurtured for quite a while, by the CIA and circumstance to create, Bloods and Crips, et cetera, et cetera.
And they let a lot out.
And they let a lot out. And we know that Hitler did the same thing, right before stuff got real. He did the same thing. He let them all out. And this is what's happening: violence, extra violence, and then they do everything they can to try to cause us to have the troops in the street, which surprisingly we've been able to avoid so far, huh?
So far. But I want to just say something about your tree. I feel very bad about the tree. The only reason why I'm really, really sensitive.
You feel more about the tree, or you feel more about me? What do you do? There's a
hey. You're still at the spear, okay? It's going to become a bigger spear. Just trust the plan, like they say. And I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm a fool. I'm trusting the plan, trusting, and things I feel are getting progressively worse. So let's let it all hang out. There's only 4 months to go.
4 months to what?
Election.
Summer's going to be over.
Election.
The election, first of all, forget about that. And second of all,
forget about football.
The summer is only what? We're 15 days into summer, roughly, something of this nature. We've got 45 or so days left. So that's roughly, 3 months?
No, isn't it 3 months? Yeah, 3 months, which is 90 days.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's actually quite a bit less than that. So we're into there. We're into that already. You could be right. I don't know. It's whatever it is. 90 days.
It doesn't matter. It matters.
The point is that Trump said he's going to roll out the troops by the end of the summer. And that's kind of definitive. This whole sticking everybody with a needle stuff. At the same time, we see him saying that it's just going to go away by itself. So this is bizarre.
Well,
let me just say this about Trump. His ratings are tanking right now. It's really bad. What he's done to the economy or what COVID has done to the economy, there's no way you can reelect somebody with an economy that's taken a big
Yeah, you can when you have an opponent like his.
Well, of course, the opponent's worthless, but my God, it only takes so many states to flip, and that's unfortunately what's happening. And then, of course, this is coming on the heels of Black Lives Matter, and everybody's trying to project, virtue signaling, and they'll vote Biden in just to be virtue signaling at this point.
Right, I know. Yeah, at this point. But let me tell you about the tree.
Yeah.
I have trees. I got very blessed, and I didn't even realize them until, I ate my breakfast outside, and there was no radio, no phone, no phone, no internet. And I'm hearing the birds. I'm seeing the bees around the orange trees, and and then we have a tree up front. They did cut not the branches, they cut the leaves. One day I came in and was naked, and I go, oh, this is nice. I could see across the street. And I noticed them grow every day, more and more grow. Now, this tree protects this apartment from getting baked when the summertime is going to hit on the west, faces west. It protects us. Okay, but this tree is like, it comes to me. I keep the window open at night. I kind of feel these birds that are on it are giving me some kind of downloads. But all I know is when I go downstairs and I hug the tree, it's like there's a place where my 2 feet, and it's perfect. I put my heart over it, and I swear I feel an energy.
Yes.
I wish someone could take some kind of electrical reading on me while I'm doing it to prove that this tree is giving me love. I cannot believe it. It's like, wow. Every time it just keeps giving me love. And I look up, and then I see how massive it is. And you see all the branches, and you go, what a wonderful thing of nature, how it all just works. It's amazing.
Yes, well, sometimes it doesn't work, or it works just like humans, and it just dies. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
You can't bring it back.
This one's pretty. Well, we all of us, look at all of us as I'm advancing towards my 69th year of life. I
mean, my God, you think this tree would have outlasted me? I mean, come on, really? It's fucking falling down after.
Well, wait. What are you going to do to the neighbor? Does the neighbor have any? You don't have any consequences for that?
Well, for cutting it, no, certainly not. It was growing in the other side of the yard. They cut the root up to the edge of the fence. Basically, I went over there and saw what they were doing, and I could see it was a good foot. The root, the tap root that they had cut was a good foot in diameter. Okay.
Oh, just chop it, boy. That hurts. That hurts. Every living thing has. It's a tough one. I mean, I even get a little squeamish now about swatting flies.
Well.
But anyways,
I don't want to do it. It's a very, very bad situation because I want to preserve as much as possible. Unfortunately, like I said, the middle of the whole middle section just went, right. So there's like the two sides that are hanging. You would think would be the sides would be trimmed anyway. You know what I'm saying? You don't trim the middle of the tree. You trim the side.
That's a shame that had to happen. But don't you feel bad? You know what? You've got a lot of support.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look at you. Oh,
I mean, the psychic support.
Yeah,
you're very,
right.
I used
you might
to.
have missed
I
the whole
used
part
to,
about the roots and all that. Okay.
No, I know that. I heard that.
And or the friends. Come on, dude. And let's see what else. Oh, the relatives, the children. That kind of part.
Hey, my relatives. I can't. They think I'm nuts. They think I'm crazy. They say I'm spewing political propaganda.
Yeah.
Please stop.
That's cool, huh?
Well, it's not. It's not.
Life sucks, huh?
Well, I have to really start digging on each individual relative and calling them up one-on-one and seeing where they're at. Because they're not all against me, I don't think. But I'm just worried. I didn't like the backpedaling, what the governor did. We're back to square one. You can't sit at a restaurant anymore. It's horrible. Talking about fascistic.
I personally don't believe these cases that are supposedly spiking. I just don't believe it. These people.
They already admitted that they overestimated it.
Well,
they made a
mistake.
Estimate
or not, I don't really believe that people are actually getting sick from this. It's like if some sort of a flu going around. I don't see any sign of it. That's the thing. I just don't see any sign of it.
It's crazy, isn't it? I've seen too many videos where they've walked into the emergency hospitals and it's empty.
Yeah, I know it's not.
What is that all about?
It's not. It's just not true. If it was an epidemic or pandemic or whatever, I'd be having an ambulance going up and down the street every so often. It's just not happening.
Well, guess what? I live right near Cedars, and I haven't heard too many sirens like I did during BC before COVID. That's going to be the new
COVID.
thing. BC.
BC, I love it. That's great. Before COVID, life.
Well, now yesterday I got bad news that my it looks like I'm going to be getting a refund on my Charger seats. As soon as they admit it, it really bothered me.
That is a good thing.
Well, it's not a good thing. Come on, people want to go.
You should get your money back. It's just
it's not the money. I'd rather. The money was to pay for tickets so I could sit in that stadium and, watch some football.
It ain't gonna happen.
I know it ain't gonna happen. Nothing's gonna ever. Is there ever gonna be a rock and roll festival anymore?
No, dude. There's gonna be no church, no temple, nothing. It's crazy. Come on, think about it. Do you realize they've completely shut down our right to assemble? They've just taken it away. You realize that?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of our inalienable rights that they're not supposed to be able to take away. It's our right to assemble. They've taken that away. They told us that come on. There's nothing more police state than that. It's pretty bad. They already control the press, so, they want to take the guns away. But the right to assemble, that's when we get together and we all talk about what's going on.
Anything.
And we want to make changes, yeah.
Now we have to do it on Zoom. Now, really, that's not I think there's a lot of people are doing YouTube presentations with 2, 3, 4 people on Zoom.
Saw 3 people walking down the sidewalk in front of the house with a mask on. Isn't that something?
These masks, it's oh my God. I think it's a satanic ritual, especially if you bow down. And, oh boy. But there's just some good stuff going on with,
what?
The adrenochrome. I see a lot of entries on YouTube about adrenochrome.
Hey, Tennessee, hello, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, another more Georgia. That's interesting. Hang on, I just have to look at this again continuously. Connecticut. Check.
What happened to your foreign? No foreigners tonight?
Foreigners?
Foreign Czechoslovakia.
There's Thailand. There's Czechoslovakia's out there. Czech Republic. It's a difference. And,
it would be neat if they could ever. Do they ever write you?
First, I know who these people are. We have Australia.
God, they can't call in the show. That would be great to hear their perspective.
Well, you want to hear from, let's see, Australia, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let me see if she's sitting there. It says she's green. She's probably doesn't have her Skype on because she's listening. Well, that's one Australia. I don't know. There could be other Australias, but look at you. Look at you.
It'd just be nice to hear their perspective on what's going on.
You want
in
to hear
their
some foreigners talk?
No, I want to get. You know what? I look at the news. I can't even look at the news. My roommate watches news. He asked me for permission. I go ahead, put on the news.
At least he asked.
It's horrible. Well, yeah, but it's horrible. Doesn't help that he asks.
Well,
the results are horrible.
Was he turn on CNN or some crap, some horrible?
No, he's a 24579. No, just like. Just the news, basic
Jones
news.
Joined us. Hang on. Okay, hang on, dude. I'll be right back. Oh, wait. Looks like I was able to add her. No, I missed her call. All right, I'll try to add her again. Joan just popped up. I'm going to go ahead and add. She's listening, obviously. That's her.
What about RD?
RD's out there. Hang on. I got to try to get Joan in here. Well, RD knows how to call in. He's got Skype. There she is. Why is it so hard for me to add? Oh, there she is. Add. Oh, I got her in here twice. That's not good. Wait a minute. Oh, dear. Yeah, I always mess this up. Hi there. Hi.
Hi. All
right. So, that is you in our Warren. Yeah.
Yeah. You can hear me, obviously.
Obviously, yes.
We love it.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Look. Look. Can I give you my perspective on the tree?
The tree thing. Sure. Go ahead.
Yes. I emphasize with you. I'm very connected with trees. I live in the Royal National Park, and I mean, full of trees. Anyway, that's not the point I'm trying to make. What I feel would assist in this process of the trees. Bury a quartz crystal near the tree. Don't do any cutting. Don't do anything. Just leave it be. Bury a quartz crystal and honour the tree. Thank the tree for giving shelter to the birds, the wildlife, and also to yourself, and give thanks to the tree. I feel this will help you, and it will also help the tree in its grieving process. Okay?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, could you? What about what's going on in your neck of the woods politically?
Well, not as serious as what's going on over there, but the Australian government, the Prime Minister, he's now decided to buy $270 billion worth of weapons from the US. So to sidetrack from all the unemployment and the, all that sort of stuff. And
how's that going to help unemployment if they're American-made weapons?
It's not, is it? That's just what he's doing. So it's just to avert from, his reality or his idiocy. That's
Lovely.
about. Yeah, very, very nice, isn't it?
Yeah. Bob wants to hear is what the latest COVID nonsense is like over there.
Well, things are opening up here in the state that I'm in, New South Wales, Queensland. The borders are opening. Melbourne, Victoria, they've been hit very, very hard with it. They're all back in lockdown. Well, parts of it are back in lockdown. Restrictions on restaurants and all that sort of public gatherings. Here it's opening up. Here it's starting to come good so far. Whether they decide to, shut down again remains to be seen. But the interesting thing is they've said the borders are all closed, but I had a couple of friends come down from another state, from Queensland, separately, and they came through with no problems. There was no questions asked. There was no one at the borders, so you don't know what to believe.
There's no sports.
That was airplanes.
Is there any is there any sports going on, like Australian rules football or anything like that?
No, I think they've started a couple of big games. I mean, I don't follow sports as such. They started a couple of football matches, and then one of them came up with COVID-19, so they stopped that. It's all a lot of nonsense going on. I don't react to it and buy into it, so it's still going on, but nowhere near as severe as what's over there,
Well, how do you know it? How do you know it's severe? You only hear what you hear.
Well, that's what I say. Yeah. I don't know, but what I see.
I haven't seen severe.
Oh, that's good. So I was going to ask you, what's the reality, or what's what's really going on over there with all this. So.
Well, it's not exactly severe, I don't think. I think the only place it's severe is on TV.
Good.
Well,
okay.
We'll see what happens on the 4th.
Yeah.
I know, huh?
Well, there's no fireworks.
What about the eclipse? What do you think? What's your feeling about the potential negativity of this eclipse, Joan?
This eclipse?
Yeah.
Well, you can focus in on that negativity, or you can focus in on the bigger picture. I strongly feel that there are new portals that are opening up that's allowing higher consciousness, more consciousness to come in. It's our individual choice, because we all have free will, as you know, if you choose to react and buy into the drama and the play that's going on here, or you choose to expand your consciousness and, and assist in the growth of planet Earth and humanity. So otherwise, we're all screwed.
There's supposed to be a harmonics convergence. It's going to be, I think, 10 days from July 5th through the 14th. And it's going to be meditation. It should be hitting the internet. I signed up for it.
Oh,
I saw that. Yeah, there's a few of those things happening, which is good. Global meditations and people getting together. So
are they planning on doing this outside?
I don't know. We're trying to. No, I don't know. All I know is we're calling down the ships that are supposedly in our galaxy or solar system to become visible, so we could believe in something.
So we can believe.
Believe in something other than our government.
Okay. For your religion.
And I pray I pray. I'd love to see some ships. They're coming, people are taking videos all over the world.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's hard to deny that.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember too. I mean, they're the positive ones of a much higher vibration and a different frequency. So it's very difficult for them to come into this density that we're in. So you've got to remember that as well. So it's not a matter of just, we want to see ships, I'm not having a go. But that's my observation anyway, because it's
well, how do you know they're coming into our density? How do you not know? What makes you think we're not going into their density?
Well, that's what I was just saying. We have the opportunity with the frequency and the consciousness is to go into that, or you can stay here in this and in the third.
I don't think that's possible. Nobody gets left behind.
No.
You don't get left. Nobody gets left behind. That's the problem with the humans. That's why the Illuminati wants to kill everybody off, is because nobody left behind. They want to go forward and they can't because 90% of the people are holding them back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Illuminati is thinking. They're thinking they can't graduate because there's so many damn souls trying to catch up. They're never going to catch up.
Yeah. Well. That's right. That's it. So, but you just got to focus on your own universe that's within yourself, and just see. Yeah.
There's a lot of people channeling now, intergalactic messages.
Jeez.
Yes. There's always been channeling.
Why? Come on, Steve. What is it? All BS in your opinion, or?
I don't. Have you? How many channels have you seen in person? Have you seen?
I've seen some on the tube.
What's his face?
No. YouTube.
Well, on the tube, it's not really the same thing. I saw what's his face, Bashar. That's his name, right? Yeah. I was pretty close to him. But again, before I saw Bashar, I saw what's his face, the guy, whatever his name is, I can't remember, the singer's brother, walking around. Okay, I got to see what that person was like, and then we go up on stage and he'd become Bashar. And I'll just say, up until the time I saw Bashar or I heard Bashar, I had I didn't really believe it whatsoever. I thought it was all negative whatsoever. Now, I'll just say this about Bashar. What Bashar says he is an entity that is actually us many, many levels in the future.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's all, in other words, a lot of what they say makes sense, but they have, let's just say, a certain ambivalence because there's so much time involved. Okay, you know what I'm saying? In other words, when you consider how far away Bashar and time is coming to us, it makes everything seem kind of irrelevant, and fleeting, at the very least. So I'll just say this: but then shortly thereafter, that his alter or whoever the guy is, Anka, what's his?
But I know who you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, he went out and got in a fight with somebody over some BS out in the lobby, where there was sound stuff. I was actually working security for the event, I think. Let me see, whose event was this? It was a Kerry Cassidy event, I think it was. Yeah, it was a Kerry Cassidy event. I was working security for that. That was the first time I ever seen Bashar. But needless to say, Paul Anka, not Paul Anka, what's his name? Paul Anka's brother. Brian. Yeah, Brian. Brian's out there. I'm just going to bring Brian's ass in here. Whoops. But so I'm just going to say that when you listen to these guys, it's very convincing, and certainly it gives you a lot to think about. But at the same time, most of what I have to offer, I'll just say this, is that a lot of what I know and what I know about, say, reptiles and grays and densities and all that stuff, it all comes from channels, most of it. So obviously you can't write this information off. But at the same time, you just have to consider the source, because I've had readings, okay, and I know where this information is coming from, and I know how they can give you a certain amount of information to get you to believe other things. And, there's a lot of deception involved, okay.
Yeah.
So, but on the other hand, when I was dealing with the NSA and with the guys at the Getty and the Cavers, it seemed like every time we would know something that we know because of channels, and these caver types would trip. They're like, oh my God, how do you know that? How are you knowing it? Because most people, surface humans, are stupid. They're ignorant. They're ignorant to all these secrets. And the only reason we know these secrets is because of channels. But at the same time, let me just say this. Obviously I'm a Christian, Jesus is my commander and all that sort of thing. But at the same time, with that one exception, everything else in the universe is to be taken with a grain of salt. That means even if you are 100% think that the Pleiadians are benevolent and are good guys and all that, it doesn't matter. You still have to treat them with suspicion, just like you would a gray or a reptile or an Anunnaki. Okay? And that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter how benevolent that entity is coming off. You have to treat them with a certain amount of suspicion, because this is the thing. Even the Pleiadians have been cloned, and they're human. There are bad Pleiadians just like there are good Pleiadians. They're mostly good, but there are some bad ones out there. And the cloning issue, once you take that in consideration, you almost can't trust anything. So you got to have a certain anchor, and of course that's where the Jesus thing comes in. But aside from that, when you process the information without attaching a value, like, oh, I believe this, I don't believe that, or I love this, I hate that, that's just information. Okay, do you understand? So in other words, when the bad guys teach you something, like let's say I process information from the Greys, or I get information from Bill Cooper, or I get information from whoever, Bob Lazar, take your pick. Certain amount of that I'm going to know is bullshit. Certain amount of that I'm going to know is the programming that person was exposed to, that's controlling their, their perspective. Okay, so you have to, you just don't swallow anything 100%. You absorb the information and process it. Okay. And
but it's all. Sorry, I'm cutting off. But it's also mingled with the brain of the channel, the actual channel, who's it's also connecting with their thoughts. So it's not coming through pure.
Well,
but I understand exactly what you're saying.
There's a certain amount of interpretation with psychic stuff. And I'll just say this. If anybody's psychic, you know what I'm talking about. And I certainly don't claim to be the world's greatest psychic. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there that just blow me away. But when you get information, like someone will say, how'd you know that? Well, you just do. And when you're getting an information or an image or a whatever it is, some bit of information, the thing that will give you that information isn't going to be words telling you that information. It's going to be some signal that's going to trigger you just knowing this. Okay, like a number. You look at a number, and all of a sudden it causes a chain of thoughts that will lead you in a certain direction, or this kind of a thing. You'll get a little image in your head that will lead you to believe some chain of events occurred, or something of this nature. So, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
A little intuition. Intuition's pretty funny right now. Everybody should be going through this. I think, once again, ultimately this transition, if you're trying to keep a positive note, the only positive note, and again, this isn't a positive. It's not a matter of it being good or bad. If again, that's one of the biggest lessons you got to learn. There's no such thing as good and evil. Your choice is your choice. And if we are going through a transition and you're not making the right choice in this process, which is the bottom line of everything right now, that's just the way it is. That's just your decision. You're going to experience that thing. It's not. We're not going to attach some emotion to it or some positive or negative value to it. Okay, but at the same time, we're going to hope that we all get as many of us possible going in this proper direction. But I'll tell you right now, this is my feeling. Given the short amount of time that there is, I don't know that I've done enough service to others to make up for all the bad stuff. You know what I'm saying? So this is all we can hope for, is that when the time comes that we've tipped the scales in our favor before that big transition takes place, or before we have to get judged for it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, yes. But then again, as someone who takes like DMT, or I haven't taken ayahuasca, but that DMT, it's like no one could take that away from me. I mean, that was definitely a different interdimensional experience. And, hopefully, I guess that's what, the fourth dimension? Isn't that what you deal with in the ether?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, and then it comes down to, are we going to just plop right back down to 3D, or are we going to ascend to 5D?
Oh, hell no, you're going to be stuck there for a long, long time.
I don't want to. I'm tired of physical reality.
Oh, well, you could have your individuality tossed into the great pool of consciousness and dissolved into nothing. But, the idea is to preserve your individuality as high up as possible. I did get a revelation, though, that I would get to skip to level 6 last night when I was kind of, So I thought that's cool. I'm probably more fond of level 8 myself, but I guess 6 isn't bad, because then I can go from 6 to 8.
Yeah, well, I like 7. I just would like to say, I personally, I've looked at many religions, studied many, well, not too much in depth, but what I've come to the realization, this is not just yesterday, today, the doors close. Same with Christianity, anything. The door closes, only goes so far. So what I've tapped into, or what I'm now delving more into, is shamanism, the path of the shaman. The door is open. It's open up to other realities. I mean, you can do what's called shamanic journeying, which you go to an upper world, a middle world, and a lower world. I mean, you can still have your belief, you can have your religion. There's nothing to do with that. So I've been doing some very interesting journeys, very, very interesting. It's like you're just watching, you're watching a movie that's part of yourself. It's traveling to one of the worlds. And I recently did, if I may continue to talk, I recently did a journey where I stayed in the middle world, what's called the middle world. So what you do is you go to a sacred altar and you make an offering to this altar. And then you journey and just see where you're going. You have a power animal. Recently, a griffin met me, of all things. And then what happened in this particular one, what I feel I'd like to share, I was then, suddenly I was, which I have physically been there in South America, Bolivia. It's called the Temple of the Sun. There's actually an altar there, and they call it the meeting place of the gods. That's what it's known as. Anyway, I was suddenly there, sitting at this altar.
Were there any llamas? Did you see any llamas while you were there?
Yeah, of course. And then
you sound like David Spade.
Just let me finish, if I may. It's nothing to do with llamas. And a rainbow appeared. Just let me finish this experience. A rainbow appeared, and I thought, that's nice. And then through the rainbow came all these rainbow warriors. And the message with that, the message in my thoughts, my consciousness, is that they're coming here to assist humans, to assist us to expand our consciousness, to raise our frequency, raise our vibration. So the help is there. So that was my experience in the journey.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure our listeners are loving that.
It's beautiful. Thank you. That was beautiful.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you for listening. Yeah.
It's too bad. Golly gee, I don't know how to follow up on that. Wow.
No, No, that's not my ego. That's not coming from my ego or blow. I did this. Listen to me. I'm better than But that was my experience, and I'm sharing it.
There's a wonderful eraoflight.com. ERAOF light.com.
What the hell are you doing there, Bobby? Stop that.
Trying. If anybody gets it, they're going to improve their lives. That's
hey, will you stop trying to push sites on the show? My God, what's wrong with you? Other sites. You don't redirect people on this show.
No, but it's going to help.
No, I don't. You don't redirect people. Period, dude. Jeez. I'll have to censor that out. Yeah, like I care. All right. Well, anyway, Joan. Golly gee, what you doing? Any healing? What did you learn? Any healing? You practice that at all?
A little bit. Well, actually, if I may say. What I've found of late, I'm not so much, here and there, the odd person comes along. But what I did, a friend of mine contacted me and said, look, this other person's mother's got lung cancer and she's on her last legs. Can I do anything for her? Anyway, I was prompted to do a journey, what's called, the shamanic journey. And what I did, so it's another aspect of healing. What I did was I took her, well, she appeared, she was there. She was tied up in, 2 legs tied and 2 arms were tied out, like you see the American Indians. But there was a star underneath and I thought, well, what's this all about? Anyway, I cut the ropes that she was tied to.
A star.
Yeah, I cut the rope. Let me finish and you'll see what it's about. I cut the ropes, right? I cut the ropes and there was, I can't remember, I think it's, there were certain birds and they were eating the cancer out of her lungs, okay? And what happened was, I left it at that and I thought, well, I have no idea what that's about. Anyway, I got a message the next morning from, a friend contacted me and said that she passed away that morning.
Well, anyway, that didn't help. That did. There you go. All right, listen.
Let me finish.
No, you got to stop. You have to stop. Listen,
no.
I got to tell you, everybody's dropped off. All the listeners have dropped off.
No,
I
haven't.
I have to, Bob, shut up. Listen, I've got my eye on the demographics as we speak, and it's like we just lost at least 50% of the listeners just dropped off. That's not a good sign. So, in radio land, that means we have to take a commercial or we move in a different direction and to apologize for whatever it was that caused everybody to leave.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm a little stumped myself. It's a little pagan, okay? So let's not do any more pagan, okay? Yeah, let's leave the pagan out of it. Sorry. And otherwise...
Oh, that's fine. No, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, it doesn't look like... Oh, well, we've got Brian here. Brian's been quiet the whole time and hasn't said diddly. Brian, get your butt in here. What the hell?
Well, I was just listening since I came in at the end and I'm trying to figure out what you guys were all talking about. So.
I know. You didn't hear anything. Okay, you missed the whole show. Well, we're talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, and Epstein. And then I was talking about the tree that fell down in the backyard and my metaphor and all that stuff. But aside from that, what?
You brought up some psychic stuff, so something came up. I wanted to ask you if you've heard of a gentleman named Richard Allen Miller. Oh. He's a doctor that he does the magic stuff. He does the psychic stuff. He's a physicist. He's done all kinds of stuff for the government and trained Navy SEALs to be able to see certain things. And I was just wondering if you've ever heard of him. He's a pretty...
doesn't ring a bell right now, but maybe he trains, these government people. Who knows? Whatever. I don't know the guy.
Oh, well, I was just wondering.
Could be famous, but no. Nope, don't know him.
No, I don't know that he's famous. He's got a lot of credentials. I just ran across him in a video that I was watching on something else.
Oh.
I was just curious since you brought up the psychic stuff because he's into all that.
Whale. Well, nope. Well, I will tell you my Navy SEAL story here real quick, but if you want, but it's sort of fun. But I actually sold lasers to Navy SEALs guys, and one of them had it on his Glock 21, which they took out diving with him off of Coronado, and they were about 100 feet deep, which is pretty deep if you're a diver. I don't know if any of you guys are divers, but 100 feet deep, it's actually kind of dark. And they took the gun out to do a little test, and the laser and everything worked just fine underwater. So isn't that something? Yeah. I got to do a inspection on the gun about a year later. Everything was hunky-dory. Well, I had to replace the battery, but, you know. How about that, huh? Did you like that story?
Yeah, I do. I want one of those lasers.
Yeah, I know, huh? Jeez, what a dream that is, right?
Yeah.
That's like wanting a Ferrari or a Picasso that isn't being made anymore. You know?
Well, why?
You find one that's what? Picasso? No, that's because the damn artist is dead. You're not going to get an original. You're going to have to buy one that's already out there. You know, if you're not making them anymore. I mean, I could probably. I keep having dreams about stuff like that, and I think in a dream here recently, I actually had the proper lenses to build these things. I thought, oh boy, I could actually make some of these things now. But I think it was just a dream. Pretty sure I don't have any lenses.
What about future AI? Well, maybe they can instill an artist's skills and let them go at making a new painting.
Oh, put their brain into a machine. Hey, look at
yeah, I think that's what they want to do with our souls. It's all about getting our souls.
It doesn't really work.
I don't know. They'll perfect things in the future.
You'll just create a singularity doing all that kind of crap.
All right, I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll give you an example of why there's a certain limitation, and one is the Hubble Space Telescope. Okay, when they made the primary optic for the Hubble Space Telescope, they did as much as possible. They tried to use a machine to create the thing with a computer drive, but needless to say, it could never keep a machine can never do what a human can do. Okay, a human has the voodoo. Their finger pressure and whatever it is that they do is basically infinitely adjustable. Okay. Anyway, that's the thing is so let me just tell you from experience is that they've never been able to come up with a machine that could produce an optic as good as what a human can do. It's just the way it is.
Right, for now.
They won't be able to do it. That's the way it is. Huh?
I said maybe there's a good reason for that.
Well, it's because a human has to write a program, and a person is going to have intuition, and a person is, when they learn how to do things and they get skills built up, they're going to have a certain amount of intuition, and so they take chances. So when they're trying to finish and complete a job and bring something to a certain specification, they may have to do things that may not make sense or a machine may not think of, because a human will do crazy things sometimes just to try to take a chance and see if they can achieve a certain result. See, that's human creativity. Machines aren't going to do that.
That's my point, though. We don't need machines to do that. We're perfectly capable of doing that ourselves. And so I was kind of agreeing with you that you can't do that for a reason, because we don't need the computer to do that for us.
Mm-hmm. Could I just interject something? I want Stephen Kelley to ask one or two questions you're the one who gets to ask the first questions to Miss Maxwell, to Ghislaine. What are you going to ask her?
Ask Ghislaine Maxwell.
What are you going to ask her?
First of all, she's not that important. Okay. All right. That's the reason why her life is actually kind of in danger. They could throw her under the bus because she doesn't control the money.
But she has the black book, I think, and all that knowledge.
Well, okay, so then I would assume then that she would know the same things that Jeffrey Epstein would know, and then asking her a question would be the same thing as asking Jeffrey Epstein a question, right? So in that case, I would say, who took over the Vesco operation? I'd like to know who took over after Vesco.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. And then if that's not if the name's not Donald Trump, I'd like to know who came after that. There's obviously the syndicate or the worldwide mafia that's certainly in control right now was at one time, you could say, led by Robert Vesco, who of course was in a Cuban jail until he died up until a certain point. But during the Nixon years, for sure, he was extremely active and extremely powerful. And that's why when we look at the Trump administration and we see all these Nixon personnel everywhere, we know what's going on. We know what's going on. All Nixon's old cronies and hitmen and ne'er-do-wells. People, you realize that guys like Bob Barr were in the shadows for so long that you don't realize just how much crap they're involved in because you didn't realize that they've been in the shadows for so long.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Think about it. It's like we know that Bob Barr had more power than Bill Clinton when him and Oliver North and George Bush, Vice President George Bush, were calling the shots. And even then, Vice President George Bush was way more powerful than Ronald Reagan.
Right.
He didn't stop being head of the CIA. I can't believe anybody would even think for a second that it would be a good thing to put the head of the CIA in a position of power like that. It's insane. But they did it. He rode Reagan's coattails into office. Nobody would have elected him if it wasn't for Reagan. Once he was in there as vice president, he was a shoo-in. But that's what they had to live through so many Reagan years. They knew that if they wanted to get Bush in there, that they had to live through a few Reagan years first. But Reagan was a stooge because Bush and Oliver North and guys like Barr were really running the show behind the scenes, and the show was Intertel. And, for all we know, Jeffrey Epstein was the head of Intertel, for all we know. Maybe that's why he was so fucking brash and had the island and all that shit. He could have been the guy that took over.
Are they connected with Mossad?
Of course they are. It's all the same thing. That's the thing. That's the nature of the mafia. The mafia is just a big corporation, and the corporation is just a whole bunch of groups of syndicates working together. And this is a worldwide syndicate, the biggest one that's ever been.
Well, when George Bush Sr. was president, he made sure that his vice president, Dan Quayle, was no threat. It's like, I don't know. I'm interested in seeing who Biden's going to pick for VP.
Oh, I think it's going to be Kamala Harris because she's a Getty clone. So obviously Getty is going to get somebody into the White House because Biden is going to die and Kamala Harris will be president. Mark my words.
I think Kamala's got too much of a dark past for that to ever happen.
Oh, like that matters? Look at damn fucking Trump. His family fortune.
No, I know, but his past didn't come up until it was too late. So
Kamala's past is nothing compared to the rest of these guys, okay?
Yeah, I know, seriously. But she's on the other side, so it's going to be pulled up instantly.
Well, look, it doesn't matter. Just like guys like Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom was basically inserted into office, same way Dianne Feinstein was put into office. She was inserted into office. You don't really have anything to say about it. And if Biden gets elected and brings in Kamala Harris as VP and Biden dies, even if Biden doesn't die and she takes over after him, it's going to be the same thing as George Bush taking over after Reagan because he got his foot in the door. So once she gets her foot in the door, she's going to be the shit. It doesn't see. That's the thing about politics. Once you get to the top of that hill, you take it over, and if she gets up there, she'll take it over. Same way Hillary wanted to do, or anyone else. And Biden's so fucking weak. Obviously, we don't really expect him to do anything but what he's told. And I think if he's told to make Kamala Harris, who has got Getty patronage, I mean, come on. That should be a big red flag right there. That's just. Well, and then what comes next? She runs for president and then has Gavin Newsom as her running mate. I mean, come on, you guys realize this is all completely feasible.
Yeah, it's all feasible, but let's be honest, Biden couldn't win an election to save his life. He probably won't
Except
even
for this one.
actually run. Yeah, but I think when it comes down to it, he's going to be kicked out of there, and they're going to throw somebody else in there. That guy can't.
Yeah, like Kamala Harris.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be Kamala Harris. I think they're going to try.
All right. See, this is the
she's
thing.
got too much
The
stuff going on
alternative to Kamala Harris is the silly woman that thinks she's an Indian, or whatever the hell her name is.
Pocahontas.
Yeah, Pocahontas.
Well, I think the reality is we need to do something else.
Obviously we need something else, but that's what they're trying to give us. And the thing is between these choices, it's like, obviously, it's one pedophile or the other pedophile. And the thing is like, you talk about Kamala Harris. Well, what if Trump decides to stick Jared Kushner in there? And what if, I mean, check out the laws. If the vice president dies, he could probably appoint someone like Jared Kushner.
Isn't it the Speaker of the House?
Is it? Does the Speaker of the House
third.
on that?
Yeah, third. Sure? Yeah, that's why.
No, I
did you ever see the lip reading? Did you see the lip reading?
I can't believe that.
At the lip reading at the.
All right, somebody better verify
State of the Union.
No, I think you're talking about a line of succession, dude. It's not a line of succession would be if the president and the vice president both died, then the Speaker of the House would go on. But that's different.
Right.
This is a vice president vacancy.
He would take the place until someone else was put in. That would be a temporary thing, and he wouldn't have executive power.
He'd probably appoint somebody. I don't think there'd be an interim vice president. I mean, unless of course they do have somebody filling that role already. But I don't see. That's an interesting question. Like I said, somebody needs to look that up. But I'm looking for them to have Kushner stuck in there one way or the other. So
you don't hear much about Jared at all.
Yeah, I wonder why, huh? Keep a low profile, huh?
Well, here's the deal. I don't understand the difference between a clone and a double. They say that some of these people have been done away with at Guantanamo, and what you're seeing for the public is either a clone or a double. So, it gets so crazy you don't know what to believe. But I think those things are real, the doubles and maybe the clones.
I suppose.
Well, if we want any fix, none of those people can get in there, and the system needs to be redone. So,
will there even be an election, or are we going to have to stand 6 feet away?
I don't think so. Well, the funny thing, of course, is Trump trying to say that the mail-in ballots are compromised, which is, of course, the most logical thing for everything to do if we're under quarantine is mail in the damn ballot,
Yeah, but you don't know who's going to do the voting.
Well, look, dude, this is the thing about a mail-in ballot. It's just like, I don't know who it was, Stalin or someone said he didn't care
Whoever
about.
Counts them.
Who counts the votes is what matters. But the point is that's not what Trump is trying to say. Trump is trying to suggest that the ballots themselves will be tampered, the ballots will be stolen, all these silly things will happen. The issues that he's raising over these ballots are issues that everyone has just really never thought of as being, susceptible to they've never been problematic. Okay, if anything, this particular method of voting is one of the best. And the thing is the only problem with a mail-in ballot is that sometimes the tally may have to be conducted a little bit late because the votes keep pouring in the mail, not on a timely basis, and they have to process those votes. That's the only thing that's wrong with it. But the point is that the system that we used, the mail system that we use to send this stuff is supposed to be sacred. You don't go around telling people that something they stuck in the mailbox is going to be violated, because that's one of the core beliefs here in the United States is that our postal service is not corrupt, that our mail isn't being violated. We have certain, you know what I'm saying? We have certain rights here. And so for him to say that would be to suggest that this is happening. And this is the thing about Trump. He projects, and most sociopaths, of which he is, will do that. They'll project. They will accuse others of that which they are doing. So clearly, when someone says, oh, it's going to be tampered with and all that, it's because that's what they would do. That's what they've been doing. They know they would be aware of that. But obviously, this is bullshit because we know that the electronic system is much more prone to tampering, and the entire election last time around was all about George Soros hacking the things that were done electronically and processed offshore. So if anything, a paper ballot in an envelope counted in a big giant warehouse by a whole bunch of people in an old-fashioned process is still superior, even if you have Joseph Stalin standing there deciding that one number is a different number. Okay, because ultimately those paper ballots are still going to be there. You're going to have evidence. It's not like an electronic number in the ether that somebody can alter with a keystroke, right?
Well, yeah, you could have a kid who sees the ballot hanging around and just fill it out what he wants. And send it in.
It's still not going to add up to squat. Ultimately,
but how do you verify that the people that are sending ballots in are legitimate people? Look at all the homeless people that are living in California under bridges, making their own little micro communities.
They're not getting ballots. How would they get a ballot?
How do you know that somebody can't send one in for them?
Well, first of all, their ballot is going to go. It's going to be mailed to your home. This is the thing. I haven't received. Let's put it this way. I haven't received a ballot forever, and because in order to receive a ballot, you first need to be registered. Okay. So now these homeless people, if they were homeless and they decided to take the time to go get registered, and they had an address that they could offer, like a P.O. box, whatever the hell, then sure, they could certainly participate because a ballot would be mailed to that address. Now, these stories about people living somewhere and getting all sorts of ballots for people that don't live there anymore and all that stuff. First of all, once again, I said one of the main concepts here in America is that the mail is sacred. In other words, you don't open other people's mail. Okay? So in other words, if we didn't have a bunch of low-life scum opening people's fucking mail to do this shit, we wouldn't have these issues. So, in other words, it's like the bottom line. When we get to the bottom line.
People's mail gets stolen all the time.
Exactly. The point is people are scum. Let me cut to the chase here, okay? The bottom line is that there's no more fear of God, just like there's no more fear of government. And that's why we have to have a damn police state, and it's nothing left but the law of the jungle. And all they got to do is push a button, and the law of jungle goes into effect. It's not acceptable. So ultimately, you're asking me, what are we supposed to do to make it right? This is just part of it. You got to have that fear of God in there, and you got to have these people that are going to have some morality and some decency, and they're going to honor certain things that are sacred, such as you don't open other people's fucking mail. If anything, this person doesn't live here anymore, you throw it away. You don't go, I'm going to fucking pretend like this person's alive and vote Barack Obama and mail it in. I mean, sure, some people might do that, and in a projects or someplace where people come and go, there could be all kinds of stuff showing up for ballots. But, once again, remember, these people registered. Okay, so if they didn't register in the first place, they would not be getting those ballots. Okay? That's just the way it is. So all this, so in other words, the abuse that's being suggested that could take place is minimal. Like, for instance, one of the biggest things that Trump tries to suggest that somebody's going to break into a mailbox and steal the contents, and those contents will include people's ballots, as if to suggest that that's the most valuable thing in that mailbox. They're going to throw away, some crook is going to sort through hundreds of pieces of mail in hopes that they're going to find all the ballots that everybody mailed that particular day. You know what I mean? It's like, it's preposterous. What do you think the actual percentage of ballots you might get, considering that they pick up the mail every single day? It's nothing. The odds of changing the results of an election under those concepts is preposterous. You'd have to be stealing the mail every single day out of every single mailbox, and obviously that ain't going to happen. And besides,
but I think the biggest concern is that
what
where this mail is going and who's sifting through it. Because we already had this problem in the last election where you had random people that had nothing to do with anything having piles of ballots in the trunk of their car.
Look, the Obama campaign obviously was rife with fucking corruption. We all know that. We all know Hillary Clinton was a fucking criminal. The problem here is that you guys haven't gotten it through your heads that Trump is a fucking criminal too. You know, seriously. Now, once you accept that Trump was no different than Hillary, Obama, or whatever is going to do, whatever the fuck it is. I mean, my God, Biden's such a pussy little nothing criminal. I mean, Biden doesn't have billions of dollars. That should tell you right away. He's a nothing as far as criminals are concerned. But Trump does. Trump is not above any sleazy behavior whatsoever. So for him to be lashing out and saying this shit is sleazy as all hell. As to suggest that the Biden campaign is going to steal that.
I just don't agree with mailing in ballots. If you can't go and vote like you're supposed to, then we don't vote until the virus is over. Period.
Then there you go. That's
the virus may never be over.
That's what they want.
Well, then we don't vote. And we don't vote, and that's never going to happen.
You keep Trump forever.
None of those guys will be able to be elected, and we'll get things fixed.
Kyle Trump. I mean, come on, that's exactly what it wants.
Oh, fuck that.
Well, it's been a very good show, pretty decent. Thank you, Steve. I want everybody to have a good week, and I'm going to sign off, and thank you for allowing me to share. And, hey, everybody have a good one.
Yeah, okay, get out of here, Bob. All right, adios. You go. Okay, Bob's gone. Okay, John, do you want to say goodbye while you're here?
Bye.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
All right, Brian.
Hey, I'll try to get on earlier next week. I'm in a different time zone, so I'm like losing my mind over here. 3 hours ahead of you guys.
My goodness.
So,
what the hell are you doing over there?
Oh, I'm doing some work for this company, trying to get some extra money to get everything going with Volition.
Cool.
But
all right. Well, enjoy the East Coast.
Yeah, it's too humid over here.
Are you down south or what? Where are you at?
I'm in Indiana.
Oh, Indiana.
Southern Indiana.
Okay, well, you've been out there a couple of times now, I think, huh?
Yeah, yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
all right.
They have a big shop out here, so I come out here for a few weeks at a time and then go home and do what I need to do. So.
Got it. All right, sounds good. Enjoy that. I'll talk to you later.
All right, well, keep it up. I like the content.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you some. Look out in your email. I'm gonna send you some stuff.
Oh, you send me some stuff. Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, Brian, get out of here. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, everyone.
Hey, Stevie. Hey, my heart goes to your trees and to your roots, and I know that every tree is like the similarity to Avatar. So I hope that,
Bees.
Yeah.
And the poor squirrels. I feel really bad about the squirrels. Anyway, I'm sure they'll find shelter somewhere, but they're still jumping in the bird feeder. I hung the bird feeder from the clothesline interim, and the squirrels are still jumping into it. They're jumping from the debris of the fallen tree into the... They're adapting already, but it's like still, it's pathetic. All right, anyway. All right, everybody, I'll let you get out of here. Those of you that stuck around, thank you for sticking around. And I'll talk to you next time, hopefully. See what else I want to tell you real quick. Now, obviously, I know everybody's going through a lot of rough times, but sometimes, miracles, you really do need miracles. And obviously, for me, a miracle would be financial. And I can't, obviously that's not going to happen for anybody in this environment. But that's really where it's at. And I hope you guys learned something tonight. That's really all I can say. So, yeah, you guys have got to be those little trees that are going to hopefully grow up and replace the other tree that, lost its roots. All right, with that, I'm going to let you go. I'll see you on the flip side. All right. Once again, this is the Stephen D. Kelley Show. My name is Stephen D. Kelley. Is still July 2nd, 2020. It's now 9:04 p.m. We did go for 2 hours, 9:05. If you do want to help out, again, the PayPal is stephenkelley714@gmail.com, and please say friend or family when they ask you. Don't type it in a message because they don't read that. So there's like a thing you got to click to make it do that. And every little bit helps, and that's about it. But please don't. I mean, you guys, it's up to you guys. Okay, you got to be creative, and you really have to try to do something on your own to further the cause. Okay, as much as possible. Okay, once again, I do appreciate all you guys listening, and all of you that listen to this on YouTube, please do leave a comment because I don't have a live. I like reading the comments. Okay, it means something to me. All right, appreciate it. All right, good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.